inside India's gas lifelines. A complete guide to LNG, LPG, PNG and CNG. While the names may sound similar, but here's the difference between LNG, LPG, PNG and CNG. The gas is powering India and why they matter amid Iran war.
Well, India today finds itself at the center of an energy conversation that is far more complex than it appears on the surface. Because what seems like a simple discussion around cooking gas or fuel for vehicles is actually a deeper story about national security, global dependence, and the transition towards a cleaner economy. Hello and welcome to another segment of Explained. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and today we are going to decode a question that suddenly becomes central to India's energy story. PNG, CNG, LPG, LNG, why so many gases? What do they actually mean? And more importantly, why is India now pushing a shift away from LPG? Well, terms like LPG, PNG, CNG and LNG are now being used interchangeably in public discourse. But the reality is that each represents a distinct stage in how energy is produced, transported and consumed. Together, they form the backbone of India's evolving gas ecosystem, one that is increasingly being shaped by global geopolitical tensions, particularly in West Asia, and the urgent need to reduce dependence on imports. At its core, this is not just about understanding different types of gas, but about decoding how India is restructuring its energy future in response to both opportunity and crisis. Well, to begin with, LPG or liquefied petroleum gas has historically been the most familiar and widely used fuel for Indian households, especially in urban and semi-urban areas where cylinder-based distribution became the norm decades ago. LPG is primarily composed of propane and butane, hydrocarbons that are derived during the refining of crude oil or extracted during natural gas processing, and its portability through cylinders made it ideal for a country with vast and diverse geography. However, the very strength of LPG, its dependence on global oil refining, has also become its biggest vulnerability, because India imports a significant portion of its LPG requirements, exposing the country to international price shocks, supply disruptions and geopolitical risks. In times of global instability, whether due to conflict or trade disruptions, LPG supplies can tighten, prices can spike, and governments are forced to step in with subsidies or rationing, turning what should be a routine household necessity into a strategic concern. Well, this is precisely where the conversation begins to shift towards PNG or piped natural gas, which represents a more modern, infrastructure-driven approach to energy delivery. Unlike LPG, PNG is not stored in cylinders but is delivered directly to homes through an underground network of pipelines, ensuring a continuous and reliable supply without the need for booking refills or managing storage. The gas itself is primarily methane, a cleaner burning fossil fuel that produces fewer emissions compared to LPG, making it both environmentally and economically attractive. As urban India expands and infrastructure improves, PNG is increasingly being seen as the natural successor to LPG in cities, offering convenience, safety and efficiency. But more importantly, it reduces logistical complexities and allows for better integration with domestic and imported natural gas supplies, thereby aligning with India's long-term vision of increasing the share of natural gas in its energy mix. Parallel to PNG is CNG, or compressed natural gas, which uses the same base fuel, methane, but is stored under high pressure and primarily used in the transport sector. Over the years, CNG has become a critical component of India's urban mobility strategy, especially in cities like Delhi, where pollution levels force policymakers to adopt cleaner alternatives to petrol and diesel. Vehicles running on CNG emit significantly lower levels of harmful pollutants, making them an essential tool in the fight against urban air pollution. At the same time, CNG is often cheaper than conventional fuels, providing an economic incentive for adoption among public transport operators and private vehicle owners alike. What makes a CNG particularly important in the larger energy narrative is that it demonstrates how a single source, natural gas, can be adapted for multiple uses simply by changing the method of storage and distribution. Well, then comes LNG, or liquefied natural gas, which operates at an entirely different scale and serves as the bridge between global supply and domestic consumption. LNG is created by cooling natural gas to extremely low temperatures, transforming it into a liquid that occupies far less volume and can be transported across long distances by specialized ships. This process allows countries like India, which may not have sufficient domestic gas reserves, to import natural gas from diverse sources such as the United States, Australia, and Russia. Once LNG reaches Indian shores, it is regasified and fed into the national pipeline network, eventually reaching homes as PNG or vehicles as CNG. In this sense, LNG is not a competing fuel but a crucial link in the chain, enabling India to access global energy markets while still promoting cleaner fuel usage domestically. However, LNG also comes with its own challenges, including high infrastructure costs, price volatility, and exposure to global market dynamics. What becomes clear when we look at these four forms, LPG, PNG, CNG, and LNG, is that they are not isolated categories but interconnected elements of a single energy system. Natural gas begins as methane extracted from underground reserves, and depending on how it is processed and delivered, it takes on different forms to meet different needs. LPG represents the heavier components separated during processing, PNG delivers gas through pipelines, CNG compresses it for mobility, and LNG enables international transport. This interconnectedness is crucial to understanding why India is now actively encouraging a shift away from LPG towards PNG and other forms of natural gas, because the latter offer greater flexibility, efficiency, and resilience in an uncertain global environment. The urgency of this transition has been amplified by recent geopolitical developments, particularly tensions in West Asia, a region that plays a critical role in global energy supply chains. A significant portion of India's LPG imports passes through strategic choke points such as the Strait of Hormuz, making it vulnerable to disruptions caused by conflict, military escalation, or even the threat of blockades. In such a scenario, the risks are not theoretical but immediate, with potential impacts on availability, pricing, and overall energy stability. This has forced policymakers to rethink the country's reliance on imported LPG and accelerate the push towards alternatives that offer greater control and diversification. The shift towards PNG and LNG, therefore, is not just an economic decision, but a strategic imperative aimed at insulating the country from external shocks. At the same time, the transition is also being driven by domestic considerations, including the need to build a more sustainable and environmentally friendly energy system. Natural gas, whether delivered as PNG or used as CNG, burns cleaner than traditional fossil fuels, producing fewer greenhouse gas emissions and contributing less to air pollution. This aligns with India's broader climate commitments and its goal of increasing the share of natural gas in the energy mix from around 6% to 15% by the end of the decade. Achieving this target will require significant investment in infrastructure, including pipelines, storage facilities, and distribution networks. But it also promises long-term benefits in terms of efficiency, cost savings, and environmental impact. However, it is more important to note that LPG is not to disappear overnight, nor can it be entirely replaced in the near future. For millions of households, particularly in rural and remote areas, LPG remains the most practical and accessible option, supported by government schemes and subsidies aimed at ensuring clean cooking fuel for all. The challenge, therefore, lies in managing a balanced transition where LPG continues to serve those who need it most, while urban and industrial consumers gradually move towards PNG, CNG, and LNG-based systems. This dual approach reflects the complexity of India's energy landscape, where policy decisions must account for both immediate needs and long-term goals. Ultimately, what we are witnessing is not just a shift in fuel preferences, but a transformation in how energy is conceptualized and delivered in India. The move from cylinders to pipelines, from local distribution to global, and from traditional fuels to cleaner alternatives represents a fundamental change in the country's energy architecture. It is a story that combines technology, policy, economics, and geopolitics into a single narrative, one that will shape India's development trajectory in the years to come. And as consumers, Understanding the difference between LPG, PNG, CNG, and LNG is not just about knowing what powers our homes or vehicles, but about recognizing the larger forces that drive these choices and the future they are building.
Inside India's gas lifelines. A complete guide to LNG, LPG, PNG, and CNG. While the names may sound similar, but here's the difference between LNG, LPG, PNG, and CNG. The gases powering India and why they matter amid Iran war.